This video is going to discuss and demonstrate the use of negative punishment as a practical dog training tool. In my experience, negative punishment is often one of the most overlooked and underutilized modes of dog training. To clarify for anybody who's watching, when we say negative punishment, what we simply mean is to reduce the frequency of a behavior by removing the opportunity for reward or by removing the reward itself. So what you're going to see in this video is me working with my dog Lobo, and we're going to be working on his transitions through various positions. The positions that we work on are sit, stand, and down. He has always had a little bit of an issue moving from down to sit, where either he does it slowly or instead of moving into a sit position, he just stands. And admittedly, this is not something that I work on very frequently. I don't compete with my dog, and I don't have very much use for this behavior in the real world, so it just doesn't get practiced, and that's why he gets sloppy. But I saw it as a good opportunity to make a video and demonstrate how negative punishment can be a powerful dog training tool. And so you're going to see me working with him now. The reward I will use is his ball. When I ask him to change positions and he does it incorrectly, I'm going to say nope and turn my back and walk away from him before trying the exercise again. When he does it correctly, I'm going to say yes, which tells him that he can come and get the ball and we can play a little bit together, which is one of his favorite rewards. Descend. Shoulder. Nope. Descend. Shoulder. Nope. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Oh, good job, buddy. Good boy. Oh.
Sometimes when the dog does the incorrect behavior, I will guide them or allow them to fix themselves and move into the correct behavior without having to start the exercise all over again. When I do this, I do praise the dog when he's in the correct position so he knows that he did it right. However, I don't give him the big reward or the external reward, which would be, in this case, his ball, but could, of course, also be food. So I tell him sit, he's going to stand. I tell him nope, he corrects himself, goes into a sit. I praise him, good. Then we do the exercise all over again, and if he does it correctly, start to finish, then he's allowed to get his ball. Descend. Shoulder. Nope. Good. Good. Break. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Oh, good job. Good boy.
Descend. After varying repetitions of success and failure, Lobo starts to catch on and become more consistent. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Oh, good job, buddy. Good boy.
Shoulder. Yes.
Good.
Sortie. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Good boy.
Sortie. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Good.
Sortie. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Good. Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Sortie. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Good.
Descend. Campe. Yes. Now that Lobo is showing improvement, I begin to test him by mixing in some stand commands and alternating them with the sits. Sortie. Descend. Shoulder. Yes.
Good.
Sortie. Descend. Campe. Yes.
Good.
Sortie. Sortie. Descend. Okay, so I would like to discuss briefly the pros and cons of using negative punishment. We're going to start with the cons. One of the biggest problems with negative punishment is that it's only effective in certain scenarios. The effective use of negative punishment requires that the dog wants what you have to offer more than he or she wants other things that are in the environment. So for instance, when I'm working with Lobo with his ball, the ball is the most important thing in the room to him. However, if I was working with his ball and a squirrel ran by and he began chasing the squirrel and I said no and then turned my back and walked away, that would no longer be an effective way of correcting him for chasing the squirrel, because chasing the squirrel is more valuable to him and more fun to him. So negative punishment tends to not be an effective way of dealing with competing motivators in the environment. Or in other words, it tends to not be an effective way of dealing with high-level distractions. One of the other cons with negative punishment is that it tends to take more repetitions than other types of corrections. So this can be looked at as a con. Personally, I don't always see it that way, because one thing that we have to consider is that if something requires more repetitions, it also tends to mean that there's more room for mistakes, meaning that if our timing is off or we accidentally mark the wrong behavior, meaning a behavior that we didn't intend to associate the punishment with, it's not going to have as big of an impact or as lasting of an impact on the dog's behavior, and thus will be easier to overcome. Now the pros. One of the things that I like about negative punishment relates to the last of the cons that I just listed, which is that it tends to be a less stressful form of correction than positive punishment, or what we typically think of when we talk about corrections. These would be things like leash corrections. Because it's less stressful, it gives the dog the opportunity to work through problems in a less invasive way. To be fair, this is not always the case. There has been some research which has indicated that, particularly with very highly motivated dogs, that the use of negative punishment or removing the reward can be more stressful than other types of corrections, such as leash corrections and electronic collar. But these were highly driven and motivated dogs. One of the other pros of learning to utilize negative punishment properly is it will not only reduce the need for other types of correction, but it will prepare the dog for other types of correction if necessary. Meaning, the dog learns to have a concept of unpleasant consequences in a less invasive way. By going through this process, not only will the dog be better prepared for the use of positive punishment or corrections later on in training, but the need for those corrections will be greatly reduced. So I hope you have found this video informative, and I hope that perhaps some of you who watch it will be inspired to experiment with utilizing a little bit more negative punishment in your training, especially prior to giving other types of corrections. And I hope that you find it improves your dog's performance and allows you to maintain a happy, healthy attitude and a happy, healthy relationship with your dog.